The decal was a skull with a swastika on the forehead. Hey guys, welcome back to Chaotic Commentary. Today we're going to be looking at some stories about neighbors from hell. I moved into a condo unit 2 years ago, and my upstairs neighbors, a mom and her young adult daughter, constantly yell and fight and throw furniture at all hours of the day. Furniture? What kind of furniture? They throwing around chairs? And what kind of furniture can you throw? Lamps? When they aren't fighting, they both like to sing at the top of their lungs. I recently started a remote job and now work from home. Their shenanigans often disrupt my focus so that I cannot get work done. My friends say that I should just find a local spot to work from during the day, but my job involves working with a lot of confidential documents, so we're discouraged from working in a public place. I'm a very non-confrontational person and want to write a letter to my neighbors and leave it on their doorstep to tell them that they're interrupting my workday. But I'm not sure how to articulate the issue so that it doesn't cause further problems. Is it even a decent solution, or should I just accept that this is a condo/apartment life and get over it? I own my place, I don't rent, so there's no one I can contact to resolve the issue on my behalf. I've only spoken with the mom once or twice, and it's usually brief. How are you? Good, how are you? The other neighbors around me are just as unhappy with these same two women. Most of this accept the noise and move on. Wow. So you say a condo and you own it, so there's no one to complain to. Don't condos usually have like what are those things called? Like a housing association or something? Can't you? I don't know. I've never lived in a condo, but I thought that they would have like a homeowners association or something like that. I don't know. But I don't if everybody is unhappy, maybe all of y'all should get together and write several letters to them and leave them. Maybe they'll get the hint. Maybe if more of y'all complain, they'll get the hint. The comment says, people that throw furniture at each other on a regular basis are not reasonable people, so I wouldn't expect a reasonable response from them. You see how they interact with their family members in confrontations. I can only imagine how they react to strangers. Right, because I'm still trying to figure out what kind of furniture are you throwing? Are you throwing it at each other? Maybe you should call the police and report domestic violence, because why are you throwing furniture at people? What kind of furniture, besides maybe a chair and a lamp, can you throw at somebody? And why are you throwing furniture? Maybe your only option might be to like make a noise complaint. A glimmer of hope. Hi everyone. Sorry for the long post, but there is a lot I need to vent about. I'm so glad I found this community because reading everyone's stories is comforting. Last year, my boyfriend and I moved into our first apartment together. We are in our late 20s and live in a small town in rural Iowa. The building we are in has 4 2-bedroom units, 2 upstairs and 2 downstairs. I've only lived in one other apartment before, and it was very pleasant. It was in an even smaller town, and the other 3 tenants were quiet. Sometimes I would hear the guy who lived beside me playing video games, but he wasn't home that often, and when I heard him playing, I would just put in earplugs, and that took care of it. There were signs in the hallway of that building saying no laundry was allowed after 10 p.m., and the other tenants and I followed that rule. It was peaceful, and I thought apartment living wasn't so bad. Oh boy, was I wrong. Definitely wrong. I've lived in apartments. I know how people are. The first couple of weeks living in my current place wasn't so bad. I didn't really hear much besides the people directly above me walking around. It didn't bother me at all. I just used earplugs when I went to sleep if I needed to. One day I noticed a decal on the car belonging to the tenants that lived upstairs and across the hall. The decal was a skull with a swastika on the forehead. Get out right now. I was disgusted by it, but whatever. There wasn't much I could do besides feel upset. Despicable humans. Despicable, despicable. Shortly after this, I was made aware that they had a pit bull living with them, even though our apartment doesn't allow pets. Apparently they were looking after it a while because their son was in jail. Why am I not surprised by that? This wouldn't have bothered me, but the dog seemed aggressive and territorial, and it would growl and bark at me in the parking lot. The owners were working on their Swastika car one day. The dog wasn't on a leash or tied up and was growling and barking at me as I went to get the mail. The guy just laughed and said, "Don't worry, she's friendly." I never believe people when they say that, because you don't know how a dog will react to a stranger. You can't say they're friendly. I laughed because it felt uncomfortable. I wish I would have just rolled my eyes. Eventually, we didn't see the dog anymore. Then we started noticing people who didn't live in the building coming and going at all hours. I also noticed cameras on their window pointed toward the parking lot, and a camera in the upstairs hallway pointing down the stairs. Is that allowed? I thought the camera inside the building might have been put up by the landlord, but later it dawned on me that this was their camera. They likely used it to see who was coming to their door at odd hours. By this time, my boyfriend and I also noticed that they didn't have jobs. Why not just get like a Ring doorbell? Are you allowed to install cameras? I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to install cameras in an apartment. I don't even know if it's against the rules to have a Ring doorbell in an apartment. I understand there are people who are unable to work. I myself struggled to make it to my full-time job due to mental and physical illnesses, but we were obviously curious as to how they paid their rent. I could probably tell you how. Not to be judgmental, but you know what? I will be judgmental about these Swastika people. You deserve to be judged. One day my boyfriend's brother saw the guy in his easily identifiable Swastika car at the local gas station, involved in what could be described as a drug deal. Not surprised. I had my suspicions, but this mostly confirmed it. My next door neighbor had talked to the landlord by this point, saying that this guy was likely a drug dealer. But the landlord said he wasn't going to do anything because they paid their rent every month. This is how apartments go downhill. The first apartment I lived in, the landlord there, I don't even think he was, I think he was like the manager. I don't know if he owned the building, landlord, whatever. When me and my then boyfriend moved in, he told us that he did not care how we made our money so long as we paid the rent. That should have been red flag number one, that was not a good place to live. But I was desperate to move out on my own because I lived in a not so pleasant situation. Let's just say that. So yeah, the first night we were there, the very first night, there was someone outside fighting next door to us. The window got broke and I heard somebody threatening to throw someone else off the balcony. And then when the police showed up banging on their door, nobody came to the door. Obviously nobody came to the door. But yeah, that's not a good practice to say, oh, as long as you pay your rent. No, please do background checks on people. I understand that can make it hard for people who do like may have a criminal background and make it harder for them to get an apartment. But I feel like it depends on what crime you committed. Like if you like out here dealing drugs and doing violent things, like I'm pretty sure a person who has swastikas on their car has no issues with violence. But yeah, definitely background checks needs to be done. You should not allow somebody to live in an apartment just because they can pay the rent. Moving on. At some point, the guy put an ice fishing tent up next to the side of the building, and he would drag it up and down the stairs as obnoxiously as possible if the lawn had to be mowed. I've never been to Iowa, but ice fishing? Are you trying to ice fish at an apartment? I'm so confused. So why do you have an ice fishing tent? He had an extension cord running to it, so who knows what was going on in there. Probably not ice fishing. I'm pretty sure there's no lake that close to an apartment. Maybe. I don't know, but yeah, he's probably cooking up some things in there that are not fish. Also, whose utility bill was that going to be on? He would also frequently charge his car battery with the outlets on the side of the building. It wouldn't have bothered me too much that they were doing/dealing drugs if they were at least quiet and considerate of others, but they were far from it. No, it would very much bother me. Maybe not the doing drugs, that's not my business, but if you dealing drugs and you got all type of like drug addicts in and out of this apartment where I live at, I have a problem with that. The woman I had never heard much, but the guy, where do I begin? He was constantly stomping up and down the stairs. It didn't matter what time of day or night. He would smoke cigarettes in the hallway and have loud conversations on the phone. He would also cough a lot in the hall. Sometimes he would put his shoes or something heavy in the dryer. I would wake up to his stomping multiple times throughout the night. I tried earplugs, but they didn't help. He would also slam the front door every time he went in or out of the building. One night in particular, he was up and down the stairs and in and out of the door so much I maybe slept 2 hours. I could hear him slamming car doors all night long, and he walked heavy-footed past the bedroom window several times. Oh, he is a nuisance. I feel sorry for y'all having to live with him. One night, my next-door neighbor heard the two of them arguing, and it sounded like it got violent. So she called 911 out of concern for the woman, but more so the 2 children that lived with them. Not sure if police showed up that night, but they did the next day. My boyfriend had the day off and he thinks he heard the police officer tell the woman that her husband was not allowed back in the apartment. The same night, we heard the guy in the hallway talking on his phone and smoking cigarettes. We got concerned and my boyfriend called 911. An officer gave him a call back. This is a small town, everybody knows everybody, and it sounded like they'd had trouble with the guy in the past. We didn't see any officers show up that night, and we both worked the next day, so who knows if they ever did show up. However, the next evening I hear the guy shouting at my next door neighbor in the parking lot. I didn't catch what all was said, but I walked next door and talked to my neighbor afterward. She was really shaken up. He asked if she called the cops on him, and she denied it. He said, well, if it wasn't you, it was those fuckers next to you. She told him that we wouldn't do anything like that, even though we did, and that we were good kids. He told her if the cops ever show up again, we would regret it. So then I was afraid of complaining about him to the police or the landlord. The next day, the Swastika decal was taken off the car. Of course, their arguments continued pretty much every other night. Sometimes we would hear them yelling in the hallway, and other times out in the parking lot. It sounds terrible, but at a certain point, I didn't feel bad for the woman anymore. She almost seemed to be egging the guy on, still unsure if he was ever supposed to be allowed back in the building. I'm sorry, but I don't know if I can really feel sorry for her either. She seems just as toxic as he is, so I don't know. Then, about 2 months ago, 4 people, 2 adults and 2 young children, started living upstairs with them. That made for a total of 8 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment. According to my state's laws, that isn't legal. I wasn't sure what to do, so I just kept quiet and out of their way. If any of them were going to the parking lot when I got home from work, I'd stay in my car and pretend to be on the phone or something until they left. I can't imagine how bad things were for my neighbor being directly below them. The kids would pick on each other, causing them to cry and scream. They liked to play for hours in the yard next to our living room window. I understand that kids are kids, but they had 0 adult supervision out there. If I had to place bets, the parents sent them outside while they did drugs in the apartment. Probably. Well, I know you said this was long, but this is long. Halloween night, my boyfriend got a text from his friend saying that he heard over the police scanner that they were pursuing a man in our area. There were multiple officers circling our building. I received a text from the county emergency services describing the individual, and I was like, no way. That's what one of the squatters upstairs was wearing today. He ended up being arrested for a slew of charges, and he was wanted for in Missouri. Police showed up at the apartment and took the children, which was sad. Of course, the 2 adults that were originally in the apartment conveniently disappeared before all of this went down. They returned late that night. My neighbor informed the landlord of the situation, and he paid them a visit the next day. He told them that he wanted them out within 24 hours. I don't feel bad for you, landlord, for you saying, oh, I don't care how they make their money as long as they pay their rent. That's what you get. You should have kicked them out in the first place. What's wrong with you? The guy started threatening the landlord, saying he was going to fight him. My boyfriend heard everything and called 911. So did the landlord. 2 officers showed up and helped my landlord evict them. They were to be put off the property by 2 p.m. the following day. All night we heard them moving their stuff out, but I was fine with it if it meant I'd never have to listen to them ever again. The next day I had a short day at work, so I pulled into the parking lot around 1:30 p.m. and their car was still there. I decided to go to my parents' house for a while because I didn't want to have any interaction with them. Came home around 4 and they were gone. I felt so relieved. All was quiet for a couple of days, but then I heard their car pull into the lot. I probably should have texted the landlord at that point, but I just kept the door locked. They were gone the next day, so whatever. The landlord texted me that night that everything was taken care of, so I thought that meant they were gone for good. But then, this Tuesday night, I saw their car pull up and the woman and her son got out of the car, carrying overflowing duffel bags. I thought I had had enough at this point, but this really bothered me. I was so tired of living on edge and being afraid of my own home. My neighbor texted me asking what was going on, and then both of us sent the landlord a text. He replied saying that the wife and kid are allowed to be there until the end of the month, but the guy was banned from the property. We were told to let him know if we see him or hear him. At this point, I'd rather just call the police. Overall, I'm relieved they will be gone. It's just making it to the end of the month without incidents that scares me. It doesn't help that I have looked into them online and found disturbing posts threatening violence and promoting racism. I'm not surprised by either of those things. Violence and racism tend to go hand in hand in a lot of cases. Not in all cases, but in most cases. It is insane how these kinds of things will break you down. I feel like I have some form of trauma from all of this. Probably do. I hear phantom footsteps on the stairs. I jump every time I hear a door close. Yesterday I had my Klonopin prescription refilled because I can't deal with the anxiety anymore. I had to have an emergency phone call with my therapist. My boyfriend and I both carry pepper spray. That's about all we can do now, besides wait for total peace. I am not a hateful person, but all of this has made me irrationally angry and pessimistic. I despise these people, and I 1000% have no sympathy for Nazis. I only feel bad for those poor children. My dream would be to have the police get a search warrant for their apartment and convict them of selling drugs, but that's wishful thinking. I really hope the eviction goes on their record and they have trouble finding another place to live. If you read all this, thank you. It really helps to get it all out, and I wanted to share this with all of you to maybe provide some hope. I had a somewhat lazy landlord and what seemed like lazy police, and these people still managed to get evicted, so it is possible. My heart goes out to anyone dealing with neighbors from hell. Whew, that was a long story. My eyes hurt and my lips is dry. That was long. And because it was so long, it's going to be the last one for this video. Well, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Tell me in the comments down below what your thoughts are on these neighbors from hell. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.